Our brain has been hijacked to think that we're eating good and healthy food. But when you look deeper into it, because the state of our soil, the crops that are grown are actually very deficient in nutrients that we need to nourish our bodies and our souls.
Avika and Abhi are helping farmers in Thailand transition to regenerative farming through biological innovation. In this conversation, they reveal why this transition is key to health and their journey making it happen.
What a lot of people don't realize is that we've come to the point where farms and soils are addicted. These chemical fertilizers to be pretty much just drug. Over 30% of the world's soil is severely degraded at this point.
Right.
And the key is, how do we quickly break away from that?
We now have science to actually improve yields, even with organic systems. So farmers actually can make more money and not use chemicals. Let's say by 2040, we should see the whole world be regenerative.
What's one practical thing that someone listening can do to make that choice?
I think an important shift that people can do and make is...
My name is Dave, and this is the Light Forest Podcast, a journey of exploration to bring more light into how we live and regenerate our planet.
And joining us, we have two guests, not one, but two, for the first time on the podcast, Avika Narula and Abhi Agarwal, co-founders of Living Roots. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having me in your space. I want to introduce Living Roots very briefly because I think it's really interesting what you're doing, and we'll talk about it more. Living Roots is an agricultural technology company building climate-resilient futures through biological innovation. Based in Thailand, you're working with farmers across the country and Southeast Asia, and you're trying to revolutionize food production through prioritizing soil health, farmer profitability, and improving crop yields. And I think our conversation is going to touch on a lot the state of soil in Thailand, getting into how your approach for regeneration is working, your own journey as a software developers and farmers and entrepreneurs moving across the world. But before we go anywhere, why don't you tell me a little bit about where we're sitting right now? This place is a really beautiful spot. I think we have some viewers watching on YouTube, some people listening in. Where are we sitting right now?
So we're sitting on our little, I guess it's a homestay on our farm, which was inspired by a coconut. When we were thinking about what to build on the farm, we wanted to honor something, and the coconut felt very fitting because it's just the symbol of creativity and sustenance in Thai culture, because every part of a coconut can be made into something, and it's such a big part of Thai culture. This is what we've been inspired by. And we also used bamboos, locally sourced bamboos, to build it as well. So we just wanted to build something that was sustainable and a place to stay on our farm that people could come and enjoy.
Beautiful. And this is an Airbnb.
It's an Airbnb. That's right.
Yeah, so people can stay. I mean, we wanted to just build it so you weren't separated from the environment around you.
Yeah.
So you can, I mean, it's so thin, you can hear the birds, you can hear everything kind of going on. It's like basically like tenting, but
yeah, it's a really good place to come and be grounded. It's where we like to come from time to time, just to reset. Yeah.
It's a perfect place to record a podcast.
Yeah.
Nice. So to sort of start off our conversation, I'll invite both of you to help us understand the state of soil in Thailand and why starting with soil is so important, and how that has sort of ripple effects in terms of the food that we eat and the state of health on the planet as well.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. It's the only place to start.
I'm not sure how many people know about the history of farming, but like since the 40s and 50s, people mostly switched from using manures or kind of self-composted fertilizer to using industrial fertilizer. And it really came out of World War II, where we invented a lot of these chemicals, and people kind of didn't know where to go with the large industry they had made. And so they found, like a lot of big companies found that using conventional fertilizers actually improved crop health. And so that kind of created this industry. And Thailand especially was a bit late. I mean, it started in like the 60s and 70s. So like European and American farmers got the first. But then slowly, as they reached mass market penetration in the West, they moved to Asia. And I mean, it worked incredibly well when it started, like because soil was so healthy, because almost all nutrients were coming from the soil, and like soil life was really good, ecosystems were really healthy. Like they led to massive improvements in yield for farmers, and so that kind of triggered this whole explosion of use of chemical fertilizers and high improvements in productivity. Like we actually like 200% food production in the 70s, which was really important because our population was growing very rapidly. And now, I mean, it's been 50 years roughly in Thailand since we've started using chemical fertilizers. And it came with huge benefits, but at like very large costs to the land itself. So, I mean, the basics is chemical fertilizers make plants dependent on the fertilizer itself rather than on the biology and all the soil. And that leads to outlier issues. The root systems become smaller of plants because the humans are what's feeding the plant. It leads to degradation of land because it becomes very salty.
Yeah. Excessive nitrogen also depletes a lot of carbon in soil as well. Yeah, but I think, as farmers were equipped with these really powerful tools without a lot of knowledge for what came with it, there's obviously a lot of negative things that came with this like new kind of wave of synthetic fertilizer as well.
Like crops became so unhealthy, we had to invent pesticides to kill the things that were attacking the pests. And now it's a routine thing for a farmer to spray pesticides. It's not like you see pests and you spray it. You just know it, like week 3, I want to spray it.
Yeah. So generally the state of soil health, not just in Thailand, but even globally, is like not in a great place. I think over like probably 30% of the world's soil is severely degraded at this point.
And there is a point it reaches where it's too expensive to bring it back without huge intervention.
Wow.
Because it's like lost all the soil carbon. It like, like the big deserts of the world were once like the most productive areas of that. But we just didn't return anything to the soil. We just kept extracting it.
Yeah.
So like a lot of farming now is basically like a factory, right? Like you put in fertilizer, you extract the crops, and you're not really caring for it. But it's very new to how we've done it. And we've gotten really good at killing the soil very efficiently. Like it's like basically a machine process to get rid of every living being in the soil.
So what I'm hearing from you is decades of these kinds of techniques that the soil has really been degraded to the point potentially maybe even of or question mark of no return. How have you found Thailand to be compared to other parts of the world, other parts of Southeast Asia?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think like in Thailand and Southeast Asia, we're both lucky and unlucky. Lucky because we have plentiful rain. It naturally, land comes back to life in the rainy season because there is a forcing function for like weeds to grow, for kind of soil to improve. But then the bad side is, we also have floods, we have droughts because we are deforesting and are not keeping soil structure good, so it leads to floods. But I mean, Thailand is like at the point where if it stops raining, it will severely degrade quickly. But we also have this benefit where we can kind of act before the rainfall patterns become even more sporadic. But I mean, the interesting thing is that trees are what cause rainfall rather than... So like you want to keep in this equilibrium where you are at the correct moment improving the soil health. But I think globally, it's a big issue globally. But in countries in tropical countries where we have kind of safe amounts of rainfall, we will lead to less issues. But in like countries like Greece, where you have heavy rainfall very few times a year, it would lead to either massive forest fires or flooding. So we're lucky because we have this kind of interesting pattern to work with.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I also hear you talking about how by using, chemical fertilizers, so disrupting nature's patterns and creating kind of an artificial ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that's created its own vicious cycle.
Yeah. So I think what a lot of people don't realize is that we've come to the point where farms and soils are kind of addicted. Like you can imagine these chemical fertilizers to be pretty much just drugs. But once your soil is addicted to these, when people don't put them in at all, they will see nothing grow. And then there's that struggle of, wait, I have to use these products because my soil has become addicted to them. And if I don't use them, nothing grows. So we are now in that cycle.
Right.
And the key is, how do we quickly break away from that to come to a place where we no longer have to depend on these types of input.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really key point, I think, to emphasize. That once the pattern, the sustainable pattern, the virtuous pattern has been disrupted, then you can't rely on it anymore.
Yeah. No, I think that's something interesting I found too, because before we started farming, it was this thought that land can actually recover on its own. Like, oh, why don't people just leave land and it'll come back? Actually, that's actually quite wrong. It actually doesn't really work that way, unfortunately.
Or it does, but it will take like 100,
Right.
200 years before we actually see any regeneration without like human intervention.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think in natural settings, when you don't disrupt land, it can come back quickly. But we use very heavy machines and heavy tool, which the land can quickly degrade because it might start flooding on it and all the topsoil is gone. Like, because we did such a bad job at like farming as a society, it leads to a lot of issues in that way. Like, I had to shift my thinking that like, you can't just leave land bare and it'll come back. That's actually it's easy to think that nature is like really powerful, but it is actually quite, what's the right word? Like, it's quite sensitive to changes. And when you push it too far, might take hundreds of years to recover rather than like 10 years.
Yeah, I want to go into this relationship of us humans with soil, with nature, because I think that's a really interesting, just a relationship to explore. And there's a lot of myths around that, which I think are really interesting. But to go back a little bit to the soil question, so we've kind of established or understood the state of soil and why that's bad. Can you also help us to understand the knock-on effects of that? What are the key implications that you see are really significant for us living today?
Yeah. So most of it's kind of like a slow process of degradation that people almost don't see. It's sort of like, or our soil is unhealthy, but because we are pumping our crops with a lot of these synthetic fertilizer, it almost deceives the eye that things are growing well and healthy. And people have deception that I'm eating good food and I'm eating nutritious food, right? Like if the grain of rice is really big and like, it's really white and well polished for us, that means health or like healthy or good food. But even beyond that, when we see really big tomatoes in the market or really big vegetables, big carrots, our brain has been hijacked to think that we're eating good and healthy food. But when you look deeper into it, because the state of our soil, the crops that are grown are actually very deficient in nutrients that we need to nourish our bodies and our souls. And it's this, you don't see the effect immediately, but it's sort of like a decline in the way that you could even think about it. It's very subtle, but it's very painful. We'll see a lot of people getting sick younger, a lot of chronic illnesses, even things like cancer a lot sooner, because I just feel like the food that people are eating cannot really nourish us anymore.
Yeah, it's true. Nutrition, I mean, like, it's not like a question of organic versus not, but nutrition is much lower than it was 100 years ago. And like, and we have much harsher lifestyles than we do as people. Like, we're in busy cities, their stress levels are much higher. And so like the food isn't really equipped to do it. And then we've kind of created these industries to prop up health, like supplements, which are all good, but they exist because the food is failing your body in some way. And this seasonality is gone in food. Like people almost eat the same thing every year.
Day of every year, and the lack of diversity.
But food nutrition changes different times of the year too. Tomatoes are not the same nutrition year round. Like if you grow it at the right period, the soil is more equipped for that tomato.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we can kind of take a bit of we'll get a bit philosophical, like this shift, because we've lost a lot of connection to food. Humans, like society, most of us live in urban population. You can't be aware of like a lot of these things that we're so connected to food. And so because of that lack of awareness, food is just a commodity that people buy, and people want to buy really cheap food.
And fast.
And really cheap and fast food. And that's also, I feel like in a lot of ways, the root cause of all the problem is that disconnectedness that we have now with our food and with how it's grown. Because if we look way back, most of us would have had this very intimate connection with food even like 100 years ago. Or our own families would grow our own food, and not as a commodity, but we understand that it's sort of like a gift that we're receiving from the earth is the food that we eat. But all that is gone.
But
it's all just, how do I buy really cheap food?
But it makes sense, right? Like 60s and 70s, our goal was let's feed the world in the cheapest way possible.
Yeah.
Like it will obviously lead to what we have now, which is let's grow as much food as possible to feed the world. That's a weird question because it's a weird goal to set for the earth. Let's extract as fast as possible so we can feed everyone, rather than let's feed everyone well. It's very different.
And especially when we still haven't been able to feed everyone.
No.
Yeah.
Despite that.
Despite that. Exactly. So yeah, the problem is still there. I think that nuanced is really important into the state of where we are today. It's sort of like, it's hard to really put in perspective, but you think about the whole ecosystem of how food is commoditized and sold. It makes perfect sense why soil is degrading.
Yeah, but I mean, soil is super fascinating because there's only there's 4 basic organisms that are responsible for cycling nutrients in the soil, as generalized.
Yeah.
And each of them, without its existence, we would not be alive. So it's like a very fundamental biological principle that they have to be the ones that give the soil nutrients.
Yeah.
And even chemical fertilizers wouldn't really work if microorganisms weren't there.
Yeah.
So I think the fundamental thought is kind of lost now, even for farmers, that there are actually things in my soil that are digesting the fertilizers and feeding them to the plants. But there's a lot of loss. And I think it's mostly because we have the larger companies wanted it to be as simple as possible. That nowadays we have farmers that don't have any farming education, especially in Asia. But that's a very bad thing because they should be quite knowledgeable.
Well, I mean, so then this disconnection is not just us facing it, even the farmers
everyone.
themselves.
Yeah, it's become a really mechanized process. Rather than a soulful and spiritual process to grow food. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the philosophical angle as well, because certainly at this podcast, we're trying to get to the root.
Yeah.
And it often tends to go there, wherever we start from. And I'm also reminded of, in Fukuoka's book, One Straw Revolution, he talked about how his challenge was supermarkets, grocery stores want this bright and super polished fruit or vegetable, and that's what they optimized for.
Yeah, so I think what we have really learned since starting our own farm and Living Roots is that a farmer's hands are tied by what the market wants from them. Their hands are tied. There's nothing that they can do. If people are only willing to buy fruit that look a certain way, they're going to do whatever. They're not. Some people are like, so why don't farmers just not spray all these? That it's not a choice. They don't have a choice. It's not the world we live in where they have the choice to choose what they would want. Because here, even we're in the Metang region of Chiang Mai. So the primary crop that's grown here is lamyai. And each season, when a farmer's harvests their lamyai, it's graded. They're actually grades that are attributed to the fruit that the farmer picks. And so there's grade AA, A, B, C, which is the way that it's done. And to get a really good graded fruit means you get more money. So you're getting 30 baht, for example. And then when your fruit quality drops to B, you're getting maybe 10 baht per kilo. So their incentive is to get.
And these grades are based on what?
Just what people.
The size,
the looks, the fact that there's no insect damage. So the pressure on the farmer is immense to grow crops that look good.
Yeah. I mean, AA to B, it's either you make money or not.
Yeah.
So you're incentivized to spray as much stuff to get it to AA as possible.
Yeah. It's the difference between whether you will be at a loss or not.
So the incentives, again, are not in our favor, really.
And people don't know when you are buying these things on in Bangkok or, at the market, most people don't have this knowledge about what is going on
behind
the scene and the immense pressures that farmers are on.
But in almost all cases, the farmer will lose money to get it to the premium quality. Yeah. So there's no farmer. I would say 90% of the lamyai farmers in our area are in debt because they have to achieve this perfect grade. That's just. I mean, There's nothing they can do because you can't rip out fruit trees and plant something else. You need immense amounts of money to do that. And they have put so much time and money into planting these trees. Like it takes 5 years to get a fruit. So they had to fertilize it for 5 years. Now they'll never really reap the rewards of the initial planting, but it's also too much to redo it.
Yeah. Wow. And I mean, so we have these faulty, let's say, metrics that are incentivizing farmers away from the kinds of practices that they would like to use or the ones that we would want as consumers of healthy food. But then also I'm struck by we're living in a time when there's so much awareness around food in terms of, diets, in terms of people, all kinds of diets today, all kinds of approaches. When we go to the supermarket, there's a box and it gives us some information. But is that information then not reflecting the nutrient density? Is that not reflecting certain data points that I think we possibly really need to see?
Yeah. Well, I think people are having the wrong kind of conversation. And I think people are not really getting to the actual root of the conversation of what health means. Because it's too complicated. If a company were to admit that what I am providing, which is supposed to be healthy, isn't actually going to make a difference to my consumer's life, then they really lose that sort of marketing angle. Because people think just eating salad makes them healthy. But you really have to dig in and be like, how has that salad been grown? Because sometimes people see a salad and whether it's grown hydroponics, chemically, in soil, in a regenerative system, in an organic system, that nuance is not really being talked about. Yeah. And I understand it's really complicated.
Yeah, but I think to the consumer, it's also it comes down a lot of the times to price. My personal experience, even if people are interested in health or go to the gym, they're still not super willing to pay more for their food. They're still gonna eat the same way. I mean that's okay, but in our work, it's kind of believed that people vote with their food they eat. So everyone eats twice a day. So they'll vote who they want to support based on the 3 meals they choose. And 99% of the people are still choosing the 3 meals to come from conventional farming.
Yeah.
But everyone can make a big difference if you decide today, for the next year, I'm going to eat from a regenerative system. Then the whole industry can kind of become big, or you choose to eat. But that's the easiest vote, right? You vote day to day, and that's currently not happened.
Yeah, I think the most harmful mindset that most people have now in our societies is that they want to buy the cheapest food possible. And that mentality has this cascading effect that we don't even really can't see the full spectrum of,
But the interesting thing is a lot of people are I love buying fresh food from the fresh market. And I'm most of the fresh market comes from another country. Actually most of the fresh market in Bangkok is not coming from Thailand. So you don't know the farmer. That's just someone who works at the fresh market.
Yeah.
But I think everyone's I wake up at 5, I go buy fresh meals for the day, come straight from the farm. But that's not super true.
Yeah.
And I also want to, emphasize that while you say this problem is people want to buy cheaper food, and sometimes we might hear pushback to say, why are you trying to make me spend more money? And this feeling that in some way, again, that's a marketing push for me to spend more money. But I think, and on this podcast, we've been having this conversation now for a while of understanding that we've reached a state where we only optimize for money, and we've forgotten that money is a proxy to get us the things that we need. So money is something we want because it allows us to buy health. At least that's what money as a resource, as a fungible resource, was created to. But now what's happening, and what I'm hearing you saying, is that we are spending less money. So in theory, we are keeping a surplus that's allowing us to buy more health. But actually, the opposite is happening.
Definitely.
Is we are actually harming our health by spending this money that we think we'll get what we want, but really we're sacrificing what we have in order to maybe get something in the future.
Absolutely.
No, I was just gonna say, I think there was some data that was the European family on average used to spend about 18 to 20% of their salary on food, and now it's 4%. And food used to be, I think, 5 to 6% of the U.S.'s GDP by percentage, and now it's 0.5%. So you can see, even with the growing food system, we have. They're feeding billions of people. The size of the overall economy to farmers have shrunk, and the size of the money people are spending on food has gone down by like 4 or 5x.
So people are spending, but more on the F&B side.
Yeah, for sure.
Rather than household items.
Yeah, things that really nourish us and then our souls and our bodies. Yeah, I think it's sort of like this competition to make food as cheap as possible ties back really, I think without us realizing, is kind of like pushing soul degradation in a really like at speed. It's like really accelerating.
I mean,
because if consumers don't care, farmers don't care. What's in it for them? They just have that tiny margin every time that they're farming, right? And yeah,
and
it's difficult.
I mean, it's also super obvious. Like the average farmer in Thailand, I think, is 58 or 55. Within 10 years, almost all of them will retire. And you're like, we have a choice of either it goes to young people or it goes to conglomerates. Like that's basically the two options. Either large companies, we have to feed people, farm with machines, or young people come in and kind of take over. There's only two options. And in many countries like the US, billionaires are buying up farmland. Makes sense because if the farmland has to be transferred to someone. And unless we improve either how much money a farm makes or how much consumers pay for the food, the young people will never be interested because they need to make this livable income, right? Like, no one wants to see their parents struggle for 50 years at a debt and kind of want to come into this. But there are only two options. One, we increase crop yields, profitability, or people may pay more for food. In some organic settings, young farmers have been doing great work because they come in, make a really niche market, really offer good quality food to people who care, and that really works. On the other hand, like people are working on improving rice yields so farmers make more.
Yeah.
So I think we're at the system now, but all of it kind of stems to improving the soil health. Like that's the limiting function. Like you can't really push beyond where we are now without really focusing on that.
Yeah. But the extent to which we've come as a whole society where food is purely just a commodity is just terrible.
I mean, the fact they can trade corn futures on a stock market is probably a good indicator. This is not a good idea. Now they're trying to start trading the futures of water. And be like, this is like the system doesn't really seem like a great
fundamentally
idea.
People have lost their connection with what food actually means. It's like rather than it being a gift that nourishes us, it's just literally treated like.
I had a past guest on the podcast, Kat Lau, and she talked about how in Thai traditional medicine, food is medicine. The separation that like there's food and then there's medicine itself is part of this disconnection.
Absolutely.
And that's true for, I think, every Eastern culture and society. We really saw that what we eat is the medicine, is our medicine. That's lost on most people in Thailand and in Eastern cultures now as well.
No, it's true. I mean, food was the original source of just good health. Like before we had such diversity of food that I think in permaculture they say that a lot of the healthiest people eat like 60 to 70 different types of leaves a day. Like that's the goal. But like most people don't have access to more than 2 leaves, like lettuce leaf and maybe like one more, which then that means your nutrition you could be very healthy in one nutrient, but you're not getting this wide spectrum of nutrients on a diet. And that's like South Indian diets are like so vast. There's so much paste and different types of curries. And that stem came from really people who were driving health from food. But nowadays we're simplified it to like rice and one curry is like a day-to-day diet. So that will obviously lead to missing nutrients in the body. Like that just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We've gone on this whole tangent.
No, this is the
right? I think it is the core. It is the core.
Why are we trying to do what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
But I think one thing I just think is everyone has a decision they can make and they can support the system just through their decision. If you pick the food and the farmers that you eat from, if like 1% of the world was like, I want to know my farmer and I want to pick the right food, that's basically it. Like that's enough to start the system. And it's such a small choice, but like even 100 customers per farm like ours makes such a big difference in us
being able to
building infrastructure. Like then we can bring on more farmers, but it's individual choice of being like, I want to do this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the perfect pivot now to find out a little bit more about what the two of you have been cropping up with Living Roots and various other ventures that I know you also have your hands in. So we've established the state of our planet, if you will, in terms of soil health. We've established that knock-on effects on the quality of food, on our bodies and our health. So you've come to see that in your own lives. And yeah, tell me how you're addressing that today and with Living Roots, and we can start there.
Okay, sure. So we started Living Roots because, well, first we actually started our own farm first.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it for about 4 or 5 years, and then really saw that there is no viable option or route for farmers or businesses to take to practically improve their soil health, wean off of these synthetic fertilizer. In most cases, it would take around, on average, 4 or 5 years to really stop using these synthetic fertilizer and really wean off. So 5 years is not a cost that anyone can bear, businesses or farmers, but mostly no way for farmers. So we saw that, okay, we're perpetually going to be stuck in this cycle and this reliance on these inputs. There's no practical way for people to actually start regenerating their soil.
That vicious cycle that you mentioned. So you were trapped in that.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of foolish to be like, farmers should just stop using these products. It's really irresponsible and really foolish to just say that, oh, it's easy to stop using it. What's the big deal? People who say that are extremely disconnected from how food is actually grown. So that's why we started Living Roots, is just to make it possible through biological innovations and nutrient innovations for farmers to either reduce significantly how much synthetic fertilizers they're using or completely remove it altogether within the first 6 months to like 1 year of deciding that they want to do that.
Yeah, so I mean, the real, like, as Avika mentioned, just the real challenge is how do you do it as fast as possible? Because before you would have that 3 to 5 year transition, but most of those would tap into premium markets so that they can grow organic rice and then be able to give their farmers an extra 5 baht, 4 baht on top of conventional prices. And that would kind of help supplement the farmers' income as they went through this loss of yield.
Yeah, unpack that a bit more for us, because I think a lot of us, I mean, we see organic food, it's often more expensive, or there'll be some places that sell it. So there are some farmers who are doing that. But yeah, I think this is really interesting.
So I think it just basically comes down to economics. Like, conventional fertilizer at this current moment gives farmers a higher quantity of rice per acre. Like 10 years ago, chemical fertilizers, for example, would give you 1 ton of rice per rye. Or if you moved off and didn't use chemicals, maybe just use manure, you would maybe get 500 kilos per rye. So you half the quantity you're getting, which means someone has to pay you double to be able to match your income.
What you would have gotten if you
use chemicals.
Exactly. Because then that becomes the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and organic yields increase, but on the first day when you switch off, you see declining yields. But over 3 years, maybe you climb up to 800, 900 kilos. You get close, but it's hard to be as efficient as chemical fertilizers. So every business has to kind of charge a premium. That's why organic food is more expensive at the moment, because someone is taking the risk of moving a farmer off chemicals.
But you also can't use things like herbicides or pesticides. So every issue you see on your farm has to be handled more intensively and more manually.
So even dealing with a sick patient.
Yeah, but in a more like holistic way, almost. Like, you can't just pop a pill. When we mention organic to even farmers in our area, they're like, we'll never ever grow organic, ever. It's too hard. Your yields are too low. The premium market is too hard to find. There's all these barriers to actually incentivizing a farmer to stop using synthetic fertilizer.
Yeah, like, if you give them a premium market, you'll almost find any farmer is willing to change. They want to change. This isn't like the life they want, because it's very harsh actually to apply chemical fertilizer. It's very hard on your body. You have family that gets sick. Pesticides are extremely dangerous because most farmers here don't have full protection. So actually they don't even wear masks. So a lot of them by 55, 60 have massively bad health conditions. Like, this isn't, they don't want to use chemicals. It's just, how do you make your livable income? If you have the quantity you're going to sell, that's very bad for you as a person.
So I think to us, having been in this space for a while, definitely makes sense, the premium on organic. But ideally we move towards a world where that doesn't have to be, because a lot of people, we understand, also cannot afford that premium.
Yeah.
And so the kind of new goal, for at least for us, is to improve all food. Rather than trying to find premium markets where people are looking to buy better food. We now have science to actually improve yields, even with organic systems, to that same level. So farmers actually can make more money and not use chemicals. And that's just, last 20 years have been quite good from a scientific perspective of like us understanding how plants work and just how to deliver really effective products that improve soil health.
So you started a farm. You said, we're going to be part of the change. You learned a lot, of course, in doing that.
Yeah.
But you also saw that there was this barrier. There was this vicious cycle, which you were also trapped in as producers of food, and so were other farmers, and you saw this economic system that was just making it difficult.
Yeah.
And even if you did succeed, you still would just be one farm,
Exactly.
one business in one supply chain, perhaps making it to a few consumers.
Yeah.
And so you've pivoted in that sense to say, okay, the system itself is problematic. Trying to be successful in a failed system is tough. It's hard, and also it doesn't really help a lot of people.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of, okay, how do I actually shift the system?
Yeah, in a very quick but meaningful way. Because I think Living Roots were quite pragmatic. We understand the system that we all live in, the food system that we have perpetuated for many, many decades. And it's very difficult, like, to actually, unless everyone becomes super aware of the choices that they're making in terms of food, it's actually really hard to change the system.
So you're saying, like, consumers I can't change them, and I'm not trying to change them. Similarly, I'm not trying to tell farmers what to do.
Too difficult.
But you are essentially trying to offer alternatives that work and that over time can make this transition. So most listeners, I assume, will be like me, not have a lot of experience, with their hands in the soil, don't really understand what this means for a farmer to actually grow and how. So walk us through maybe the products that you have and the innovation that you've been building that has helped farmers change or helping them make this transition.
Yeah, sure.
We can walk through like what a farmer does now. Most people, I think at least for me, I had that kind of idea before I started that you put seeds and they grow, and like the farmer you don't really need to do much. That's like it's not super accurate. You have to put when you have kind of very degraded land, you have to supplement the plant's growth in some way. And that's why you have these nitrogen products, phosphorus and potassium products. So farmers usually use a combination of these in their soil, depending on the crop. And that is, at the moment, what gives the plant vitality.
I think an important thing to note here is that modern agriculture has reduced what they deem plants need to literally 3 nutrients, just nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. That is crazy. That is absolutely wild because, we need hundreds. That is like the world that we're living in.
It's like if I was to give you like 3 tablets and I was like, you'll be fine. Which you probably wouldn't be fine. It's like Soylent, like it's just the Soylent Green kind of concept where like, they were like, we'll drink a bottle and you'll be healthy. And people are like, we were not healthy. It's the same idea.
It's the same idea. So then most farmers, 99.9% of farmers currently in Thailand are operating in this sort of like fertility system. And then you'll see what happens is that when the plants grow to a certain stage, because of the excessive nitrogen that they're giving these plants, it becomes super, super unhealthy. Like to the point where it's really easy and susceptible to diseases and pests. So that means that they have to use on top of their fertilizer a lot of pesticides and like fungicides.
So it's like pumping them with nitrogen, almost like people pumping themselves like protein.
Yes,
like,
kind of, but
like it's good, it's important.
Yeah. It's deceptive, But then plants are super weak, and their immunity, they have no immunity, nothing to fight off these pests and diseases.
Yeah, but I think most people will have the same experience at home when they're gardening. Like they'll see a plant grow, but not a lot, not super healthy. Like that's basically all land for farming too. It's not like that different. Like your garden at home with poor soil is probably the same as a farmer.
Yeah.
But the farmer is just applying a lot more fertilizer than you probably would at home.
Yeah. So that's kind of the current system that we exist in. And then Living Roots is trying to move the needle by just a teeny bit.
Yeah. So I think what we'll say is the current system has not changed in 50 years. So a lot of big, 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies have no incentive in improving the system because they're benefiting. These are like hundreds of billions of dollars of business. So they have no like need to kill their own margin. But when the concept of regenerative agriculture, kind of regenerating land, I think sustainable agriculture, same general idea, is you improve the land every year. That's the basic gist. Like you're improving ecosystem health, improving soil health, to the point where you're giving less inputs. So like maybe year 1 you start with 100 units. By year 5 you want 20 units. So a lot of businesses like ours or larger businesses are not incentivized to kill their margin over time. So that's dumb business, right? They don't want to continue to lose customers. That's really great. But there's a new faction of knowledge now know about soil biology, how to bring it back, how to improve crop health. And so a lot of our products are focused on providing precise nutrients. What that means is, like as a human goes through its age, like you need different nutrients at different stages. Rice is the same on 100 days. So you can think of 100 years for a person. So we kind of know at each stage of rice what nutrients it needs, and we kind of use natural materials to build products for that. And surprisingly, when you deliver that in a very effective way, it leads to yield improvements. And that's because the rice root system is bigger. We have a product that people coat their seeds with. So like when the rice seeds are there, you coat it with microbes. So when the farmer plants the rice, the root grows with the microbes themselves. And that's very effective because I don't need to teach you. You just like mix powder with rice, right? Like it's not that tricky. But that's such a simple way to build change. And the hard thing for any kind of business is you don't want to change the farmer too much because it's also hard for them to want to.
Yeah, it's not a burden that we believe they should bear as somebody that's benefiting the least from the entire supply chain. You don't want to put more on farmers.
They're already very busy and they already have a lot to do, and it's very hard for them to repurchase new materials. Like if you wanted to buy them new machines, you have to buy them either as a business, but you can't really ask the farmers to do it. It's too difficult. So this really at the moment is a product challenge. It's not a science challenge anymore because I think we know enough in science to be able to regenerate the world. We don't need new innovation anymore in that way. We need better products, more proof. Things work faster for farmers. So like a lot of our products give improved yields over conventional in the same season. Farmers don't really have to wait 3 years. They can get it this season. And that's come because of just multiple innovations that people have made in understanding soil biology, what to feed soil to make it healthy, how to expand root systems, and a lot of these kinds of things. But yeah, I think the biggest two things is just build a really healthy root system. And the plant will take care of the rest. I think that's really just what we've learned now.
Hence Living Roots.
Yeah, exactly. And then there is a lot more, like regenerative agriculture is a huge space. There's so much people do.
How would you introduce it, like in a nutshell, what is regenerative agriculture?
I guess regeneration, you can look at it from many aspects, but I think we Living Roots mostly look at it from the soil aspect and the livelihoods of the farmer. Like those two things are very much intertwined. And if you start regenerating soil, which means as you farm each year, your soil actually gets healthier.
Yeah.
You need less inputs, you're seeing less pests and diseases, you're having more organic matter in your soil. The farmer actually becomes wealthier.
Yeah.
So for us, that's true regeneration.
Every year. I think that's just the basic gist of it.
It's quite a basic definition, but I think it's true to what we really need to see change.
But I like that you bring in the health of soil with the health of farmers, because oftentimes perhaps we can forget that farmers are part of it.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of healthy soil with data and information, but if farmers are not part of that equation, and that doesn't really work.
I think, it doesn't work. And I think I almost like to shift the perspective of calling farmers farmers. For me, I read somewhere that we actually should be calling them ecosystem managers.
Okay.
Because that's all they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And they have this complex ecosystem that they have to manage and manage well. So we just really trying to do what we can to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a someone who works in soil called Nicole Masters. I mean, she says that treat your microbes like your underground herd. Like people have like herds of cows, right? Like the microbes should kind of be given the same priority. Are living creatures that you have to nurture, and they give you as much economic returns as a cow would. But most people have forgotten that they're there. But like you really have to continuously show them that, you know, like appreciation and kind of feed them, like think about them, like, because you're taking, like, the negative part of a farm is you're exporting food out every year, right? For every season. You're taking all this rice, not returning that much, and you're shipping it across the world to cities. And so the farm is left deficient in something. But what we know now is actually when you have good microbes, there is never a nutrient deficiency, because soil, what goes into this deep into the soil, breaks down the material and makes them accessible to the plants. So that is, like, adding inputs to any farm is actually not true. Like, soil actually has enough on its own in the world, maybe some select parts don't, to feed every plant. Like, we know that. So like 90% to 100% of nutrients can come from soil. 80% is the minimum, because we've already shown that 80% of the nutrients can be supplied by microbes without any human intervention. At the moment, humans are providing 99%. It's like, it's not a great system, but it is, like, true regeneration is just humans should be less of the people who drive the ecosystem, but just the people who steward it. At the moment, we're in total control of land, and that's not really a great thing.
Yeah, and they've also seen that plant roots don't develop when we are giving them synthetic fertilizers. There's no incentive for the plant to actually grow roots to go and get nutrients from the soil. There's no function for roots when we're like pumping plants with these synthetic fertilizers. So it's broken.
Yeah, I think another thing I'll add is most people who think of regenerative agriculture, they're like, oh, it's fully organic. But I think the thing I've found is you can work with synthetics and improve land as well. So like for farmers, we don't cut synthetic right away. You like want to measure and slowly cut it. So maybe if the first season you could cut 30 to 50%. But the real answer here is you should maintain farmer profitability. Like the farmer should come out with more money. Otherwise the system never works. So why would they do it?
Yeah, I love that.
So I think the goal for Living Roots is we provide really good inputs, but not at the expense of farmer profitability. If it makes sense to cut fertilizers by 50%, you should. But the goal should be, let's make them more money and the soil health richer. And now we know that actually both of them are the same. Like if you improve soil health, farmers make more money because they use less inputs. But I think the extremely high priority has to be on the farmer being able to get out of debt or the situation they're in, so then they can reap the rewards of this. Needs to be a continuous system rather than like one season you come in, they're organic, they don't work, they go back to their old ways.
I'm literally getting goosebumps as you speak. I mean, I grew up in India, and farmer suicides was such a big issue. It was in newspaper headlines since as I can remember as a teenager growing up. It's still happening now. Farmer protests are such a big issue there. I'm less familiar with how the situation in Thailand. Abhi, I know you were born in India as well.
I think that's so important that we understand the situation that farmers are in as well, with empathy, but also from an economic lens. And no regenerative solution with food can be possible without farmers.
No, definitely not.
That's right.
I think that's extremely important. And the central portion of all of this is farmer and how they manage the ecosystem that they're on.
Because the feeling that I get now is that you call them ecosystem stewards. So let's switch to that.
It's a bit longer.
Yes.
That they're actually quite impoverished. They're actually quite disempowered. And they actually just, in some ways, have even been disconnected from their own knowledge network. Uninterrupted generations of knowledge that has been passed over has been somewhat severed, but also less relevant because, as you highlighted this earlier on, we're at a state now where even if they went back to doing what their ancestors did, it won't work because the world, the soil has literally changed. And so they need now something new to come in that's outside of their world of knowledge, that's outside of their practice.
Yeah. So that's extremely, very, very well summarized. But there's also, when you ask too much of people whose hands are tied to change, the barrier to changing is way too high. So what we try to do is with Living Roots is pretty much not ask any sort of farmers to really change what they're doing, but just switch out a few things. It's just a few minor tweaks that they have to do to really see a big difference towards regeneration. So we don't ask them to like buy more expensive inputs or buy new machines, or it's just really simple, small things. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the difficult thing that we did as a society back like 50, 60 years ago was we came in and told the young farmers that science was like the Western science was the correct science. We were like, your nonsense natural practices are stupid, and this is the real way to grow food. And so obviously there's going to be disconnects because everyone started to kind of listen to the West and was like the way that the scientific people created nitrogen was better than the people's understanding of how their natural systems were made. And even now, like, even indigenous people, tribal people in Thailand, they're all using chemical fertilizers because they have chemical salesmen who promised them this world where, like, they're going to make so much money, you're going to be so wealthy, you'll have food security. But a lot of them are now struggling with food security because generation over generation, they lost that knowledge. And the young people were like, no, the chemical way is the right way. Now they're like, sadly not. And I mean, so the difficult work as we think about how to build our products is also how do you create a product with the farmer rather than you create it and you kind of dictate it for the farmer. Yeah. That's very difficult because co-creation is naturally harder than sitting in a lab and kind of innovating. But the solutions now have to kind of be built with the farmer rather than, because you don't want to come and tell them that, hey, the world science is saying this and you should, like, you want them to kind of know. You know that they know their land the best. It's like even like our farm, we know our farm the best. Like no one can come and be like,
or empowering them rather than trying to.
But it's
take over.
It's a tightrope because they have been fooled so many times by people coming in and promising them the world.
Yeah, what's that journey been like? Actually, then having conversations with farmers. Presumably, you're selling your products to them.
Yeah.
So they're both your consumers and you're having this relationship with them, trying to help them make change to use it.
Yeah.
What's been that like in Thailand in opening up that conversation?
Yes, the important thing to note about Living Roots is that we work with a lot of businesses or food producers to get our products into the hands of farmers. So the interesting thing is that in Thailand, farmers often don't choose their own inputs. They're provided inputs by the company that contract them to grow whatever the company needs. So they'll do whatever. So for us, it's almost been easier to speak to businesses and find businesses that really care about sustainability and food security. And working with them to get our products into the hands of farmers. And generally, it's just a very slow pace to start with. Most farmers or businesses will just try our products on a small portion of their farm. And then once they see success and that they see it works for their system, they will expand it to more acreage.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's the farmers who decide if they see better results that they want to use it. So I think it is like everything kind of has to be built for them to be able to maximize things from their land, and the fact that they see results is what drives their business. And I mean, it was like a long journey to build a product that works. Now we have some products where farmers can spray once on rice and it improves their income by a few thousand baht. So like you spend 100 baht and you get 2,000 baht back. Like that ROI makes a lot of sense for farmers because you're not spending too much. And that comes from just like very careful observation of how farmers work, how much, like, you know, like it's the slow trust building. It's not like we want to come in and be like, change everything. It's like, here's are some minute things that won't cost you too much to try. And if you see success, then our partnership works. Otherwise, you can obviously go back to the system you have, you know, a part of already. And I mean, so far we haven't really been, well, so far we have always kind of shown farmers success and they've kind of increased their adoption. But I mean, for them, making more money is like really high priority. And so any ecological / regenerative benefits has to come with improved income in some way. So I think that's where we try to build products that are very cost effective and show results by just really understanding like what does rice need and where are farmers giving rice nutrients, like where are farmers not giving the right nutrients for the rice. That's kind of, you start at that like scientific inquiry and then you're like, I have a budget of 400 baht for this product. What can it actually increase for the farmer? And then we'll start with small groups of farmers to try products and then kind of scale from there.
Nice. Yeah, so what I'm hearing is it's worked out in a way that farmers are used to working with businesses and
especially
in
in
these like
Thailand.
vendor lock-in style fashion, rather than have to speak to each individual farmer.
Yeah.
You were able to go to the intermediaries, if they will,
Yeah.
and work your way through that.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just working within the system that we were.
The hard thing, like the thing about an inputs business like ours, where we provide inputs, is the hardest challenge that we have is just building trust at a large scale. Like you can build trust farmer by farmer, but that's quite a long journey. So we work with businesses because the farmers already have trust with the businesses, like stable prices. You provide. The relationship is already there. And then we kind of enhance the business's relationship with the farmer by then going back to improving profitability. Hey, actually, you can cut pesticide use by 90%. It's actually safer for your family. Or like in the future, maybe we work on some pesticides that are safer for people. Like there's so many different ways to engage it. But you have to work with businesses because this has to be a very long relationship. This isn't a 1 month regeneration perspective, right? Like you have to spend years like slowly micro tweaking their perspectives, kind of building that foundation. And so that's why it's a win for everyone. Like the farmer gets more, the business actually succeeds because they get better rice, they get more rice. And so like that's how you kind of create this, is you just need to create these like really like everyone kind of comes out with something beneficial relationships.
So you talked about the health of farmers. What about the health of your business? Because naturally, trying to be regenerative in an economic system that we have isn't easy. Thailand has its own unique challenges with big conglomerates, especially in the agriculture sector. We can name them if we like.
It's okay.
Better not.
CP Group. I'm taking
Amongst a few,
the
yeah.
Harry Potter approach,
Like
Sure.
Others.
yeah, many others.
Many others as
We'll
well.
list them on the screen.
We'll put the link in the show notes. What are the key challenges for a business like yours? How do you grow? Because also in this podcast, talking about system change, talking about how do we not be co-opted by the systems that are very good at co-opting us, where we start out with, good intentions, but ultimately we also need to survive.
Yeah.
The system has good ways of
Coercing us.
coercing. How have you been starting your journey, which is taking on this challenge?
Question. I don't think anyone's ever asked us that question before. That's like super insightful. It's tough. I think it's really tough. I think we've been managing it okay.
Yeah. I think there's the nice thing about Thailand is there's a lot of medium-sized businesses that produce food for either international export or local consumers. So there's enough people who are really interested in wanting change. And there's enough farmers actually, like, I think this is the only time in history in the last 50, 60 years where farmers actually want better solutions. Like farmers are like, I'm struggling, I'm looking for something. And they're raising these concerns to the businesses that they contract for. Like, hey, I haven't really increased my yield, but the conventional fertilizer prices are going up. I've had to spray more pesticide. So it's taking a huge hit on farmers. At the same time, businesses in Thailand only have maybe 5 to 10 years left for food production because farmers are going to leave and what are you going to do with your business, right? It's obviously not great to have your supply chain fall apart. Yeah, exactly.
And that's the eventual techno solution.
Yeah.
But let's not call that the future. It's just a complete disconnection. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree that is being adopted in vertical farming or hydroponic farming, where we are kind of building these systems where humans feel like they understand what they're doing. Sadly, we've seen from the start of the chemical revolution, then we were super confident, this is the way forward. And now in 70 years later, we know it's not. So there are many unexpected challenges that we might face in 7 years if we fully co-opt vertical farming or hydroponic or robot-based farming. No?
Going on a tangent a bit.
We're going on a tangent, but in any case, what we currently know, and it's really scientifically evident, is humans who handle the food and grow the food lead to better ecosystem outcomes and better food quality. That has been shown.
But I think to go back to Dave's question, how are we kind of managing that to call ourselves a regenerative business and still have to work in the system that's been set for us. I guess for us, it's really just like to find people who care. And if caring happens from, for example, the owner of the business, you see change much faster than asking the farmer to care. It's sort of, so we've been really lucky actually to be able to find these food businesses that are kind of either the owner of the company and the CEO of the company is like, I want to see my food healthier and my farms healthier. So if they're already set on improving health of their crops, their farmers, it's really super simple. We try our best to just find these people in order to be able to kind of do the work that we need to do. And I think a lot of businesses care, even larger businesses. Like we've been lucky enough to find, maybe not conglomerates, but good medium to fairly like large size businesses that are really looking to change how their
The demand is growing. So far, we haven't actually had to go out and find customers. Like we've had a lot of customers come to us, which is like extremely nice to do as a business. Like even now, weekly or monthly, we have inbound.
But the nice thing that we've been hearing, not so nice for them, kind of nice for us, is that even larger farms are coming and being like, we can't make profit. Because of the amount of input that they have to buy to even like...
Because that input is growing.
That input is growing in cost, which makes sense because it's, you know, shipped from thousands of miles away. So their input is growing and a lot of people can't really figure out how to make ends meet. So that's been good for us.
Yeah, like conventional farm margins are just extremely tight. It depends on the price of food and price of chemicals. And they're almost always either the price of chemicals are high and the price of food is low. So you operate in maybe a 2% margin. But regen systems, you're moving towards like 10, 12, 15%. It's still not crazy, but at least you can be profitable most years. Yeah. Even if disasters happen and you break even, that's still fine. But if disasters happen in conventional systems, you're like negative 20%. Like, where are you going to get 20% of the negative part? You take loans. That kind of builds super fast. Businesses are realizing that at the macro level, they're not able to, the farmers are not profitable, which is not great. I think a lot of people who are our age or have kids, you are naturally more empathetic towards the people who you're buying from because you obviously don't want to see them suffer. I think when you become too large, you stop caring because their numbers on like a spreadsheet. But we work with businesses with thousands of farmers. So you individually know that if you make a difference in their life, like you're helping 5,000 people and like monetarily improving standard of living. A lot of the business we work with, they really care about it at the farmer level. And they're like, we want to make sure our farmers are healthy just because their entire business is built on food. If you don't grow good quality food, that's actually really detrimental to the business that you have. And so it's been quite easy. Like they already know the challenges. All we do is come in with better inputs. We help improve the yields for their farmers. And that we can get into that later. But I mean, I think this year we're working with like hundreds of farmers, something like that, 500, 600 farmers. And last year we were doing like less than 100. And next year, hopefully we can be with even more farmers. It's been nice to kind of see the systems level change. And it's still very small as a part of the whole system. But I think the tipping point will be when maybe 1%, 2% of farmers become regenerative. Then we have significant proof.
What percentage are we now?
Probably 0.01%.
So when we see these organic labels at the grocery store, how organic are they really?
I mean, organic and regenerative is separate. There's a big distinction. When you're organic, you can substitute exactly the same number of nutrients from an organic source or a conventional source, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're healing land. You can technically be chemical and be regenerative, but organic and regenerative are separate. In regenerative, you want to use less inputs every year. And most organic farms, they're using the same or more. So I would separate the two. And like nutrient density and organic have nothing in common. Like actually they've shown that biologically active chemical farms have higher nutritional density than organic. Okay. So there is no correct way here. But we know in regenerative systems, nutrition improves because the soil biology is more active. And so far, the only major links in nutrition have showed that have come from higher biology in the system. So that's why businesses we work with, because the rice grain is better, the soil is healthier, the farmer is improving in profitability. But regenerative is a very specific set of criteria, I guess, in quotations, that are helping improve.
That's a really good vital distinction, I think.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing as well, going back to what you mentioned earlier it's about kind of removing the human a little bit less. So the soil itself is healthier on its own. Humans are involved, but it's not a huge requirement on having inputs
Exactly.
every year. And it's kind of getting into its own rhythm, its own pattern, and its own regenerative ecosystem.
No, totally. And I think that's why businesses mostly work with us, because we provide them the advisor as well. Now we're stepping into this new world where they don't have employees, agronomists on their team who have a good understanding of the questions and circumstances that their farmers might face. Like, their farmers might be like, we're moving into this new system and I'm seeing these issues, but they don't have people on their team who are trained for those. Because this is a completely new set of routines that currently agriculture students go to traditional universities and they're studying these more traditional applications of using chemical fertilizers. But now we've moved to this new world where we're doing more of this regenerative stuff. And so they don't have anywhere they can go for questions. And so that's one thing we help with. It's like, we've just seen enough farmers now where if you're facing this at this time for rice, apply this. And so that's another systems level shift that needs to happen. People who have this really good understanding of regenerative systems. Yeah. In the moment, Thailand maybe has maybe less than 100, right? How can you even kind of build large scale infrastructure?
Okay. I'm acknowledging time, and I want to dig into some of this as well, but I also want to kind of turn track of focus just for a little. Hearing what you've been describing in your journey, so there's two things that pique my curiosity. One is, how has your own view on life shifted? I know, and we didn't talk so much about it so far, but I know you were software developers.
Yes.
You were living in New York. University initially, and then you were working there, and you've made shifts from there into this whole business. Yeah. So that's one whole journey. I'm curious, how your perspective on life has shifted. You talked about this disconnection with food, with land. As you've been making the shift, how has your feeling about life changed? How's your understanding of self changed? How's your sense of purpose and meaning shifted? I think I'm very curious to know about that.
Yeah, I guess similar to how we were talking about how, we're stuck in sort of a system, the way food is grown and sold and commoditized and everything. There's just a system that you're coerced into living. I would say we were in a similar life path where you graduate from high school, you go to university abroad, you get a really good job. And we did kind of all that. And instead of finding what we thought would be ultimate happiness, we instead got quite sick, the both of us, in different ways.
Okay.
And that was years ago. And so we were software engineers. We were working. And then I think at the end of the day, whenever I sat down, I would fundamentally feel like there was something missing. Something that was much harder than just getting more money. For me, at least it was for me. And I had a lot of anxiety. I think I still do about what I was doing, climate change. What can I really do? And so I think maybe the journey was similar for you.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's just you live in this system where you're sold a dream. I was working at businesses where you were pushing products on consumers just in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
And now we're selling this dream with technology that, these machines have the ultimate answers to disease, all of these things. But a lot of it is self-created. We are creating higher rates of disease and things. And so when you start to really think about the fundamentals of what is important, you start to be like, okay, e-commerce is relatively stupid because you're pushing products that no one wants. And the smartest people in our life are working on building very efficient ad systems so they can sell more.
So I think ultimately we didn't kind of want to be stuck in that system. And then we're pretty young. Why do we feel so tired? Why do we feel so sick? And then kind of started looking at how somehow led to us looking at how food was grown. And sort of bring back our connection to Thailand and being like, we're from this country. that our economy is mainly built on food and growing food and selling food, exporting food. And we were like, it sounds like a really good idea to leave our jobs and move back to Thailand and start our own regenerative and farm, which is what we did. And I think we were both on board to do that. We were both
like,
really excited. We didn't know how we were going to do it.
We didn't know. We didn't farm before that.
We never farmed before.
Or
it was
garden.
kind of stupid. In hindsight, it was stupid.
Fair.
It was a stupid move to make in hindsight. But we were really lucky. We had our family support. We had savings. We could take the leap, which a lot of people cannot.
Right.
The reality is a lot of people don't have the opportunity to take the leap that we did. And we were really lucky that we did and we could take a risk without. I think it's, I think we were lucky, and I don't think we would have done it without sort of having the sense of support and savings that we did. Because we knew that even if we took this risk and it didn't work out, we still had something to fall back on.
Well, I mean, we also had a wide skill set. Like, we could sell our own produce. We knew enough people. Like, we were in Bangkok. We were raised in Bangkok, so we had friends and family who could buy our produce. Like, it was a very exact set of specific things.
Had some roots.
Some roots, and we were lucky. We were really, really lucky. And so we started our own farm and then made loads of mistakes, understood things completely wrong. I think we also idealized nature and natural systems as well.
Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah. We were like, nature is incredible, which it is. It is so incredible, but not in a practical way. A farmer.
Not in the way that your mind had maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which, when you actually, so many people come start a farm and quit because it's so incredibly hard. And people who just haven't quit yet don't have the option to do anything else. That's literally why anyone is farming right now, because there's no option for anything else. Yeah, and then we kind of started to make it work through just a lot of trial error research. A lot of savings as well put in.
The first few years were
really tough.
They're very you're just not really sure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the dumbest thing about farming, it's not dumb, but it just, you have very little time for iteration. You at most get one trial a year. If you're growing rice, you get 2 trials a year.
Right. Time moves differently.
Time moves so slowly, and how much can you really speed up nature, And
you were software engineers. I mean, you're sitting with computers that are at a whole
the number of
time.
times we're like, oh my God, software is so much simpler. The complete control you have over your computer is like, you're doing a 180 when you actually come and start a farm. Because you can look at your lettuce, you can be angry at it. It's not going to do anything for you, But we learned a lot, and we kind of definitely stepped away from idealizing nature, and in a very good but practical way, which helped that we were running our own farm and had to make it make sense financially. We were like, okay, we can't keep buying expensive organic inputs and then selling our produce and losing money. We're never going to keep doing it. So I think what was good about where we were was that we practically understood what we needed to do to make it work. And that's kind of what led us to start Living Roots. How many people can actually do what we did and run a farm at a loss for 3 years or 4 years, So that really shifted our whole perspective on how difficult it was to actually grow food. Like, it's not simple. It's not as simple as just stopping using all of these synthetics. And growing.
That was one of the reasons why we started Living Roots. This is what we wish we had when we started farming.
Yeah.
Just products that would have made it possible to do the journey and be profitable?
Like I do when I started farming a few months ago, and I had seeds and the compost and other inputs that I could get from you.
Yeah. So for sure.
It's just about being practical. The thing with farming is it's literally 100% practical skills. You cannot have if it's not practical, it's just not going to work for farmers. It's just they don't really care.
So that was kind of our journey.
Well, I mean, that's amazing that you took this step for yourselves, both as a couple and just as entrepreneurs and co-founders. I mean, I know that for instance, I spoke to Greg from Pan Pan, and he talked about how the Pan Pan project, while it succeeded in many ways, they failed at inspiring the farmers around them to go organic, and ultimately feeling the limitations of just trying to go organic yourself. And the need, as you articulated earlier as well, of the system needing some sort of a shift. also what struck me as I was listening from the start of the conversation, you described a lot of things about the soil and about growing that I kept feeling have very direct parallels with modern life today and us as people. We talk about roots that can't really grow because they don't have incentives to even grow because everything's just coming to them. I mean, thinking of us sitting on couches,
Very good.
ordering food,
Very good analogy.
of just kind of this very suppressed sense of life and being
and existing,
and us where we're living in this very artificially mediated world where things work, but also once you question, do they? And the system that is kind of stripping us of our own nutrients, of our own vitals, and reaching this point where we ourselves, just like the soil, just lacking that vitality.
Yeah.
Well said.
Very, very well said, I think. Yeah, and you're definitely, I think, the analogy is very, I guess it just goes to show everything is connected. It's not, nothing is separate. Like if our natural systems and soils are the word I'm trying to find, aren't functioning or are like degraded, like how do we live fulfilling lives? I don't know if you can. I think you can on the surface because people have things that they feel they need. But when you look deeper and like, do people actually? I don't think people are happier now than, we were like 100 years ago.
But I think the nice thing from like the happiness perspective I've learned like in this farming area is just community. I mean, when we lived in New York, when we lived in Bangkok, like the sense of community is low. Like actually people help plant rice together here. Like that's not a thing. We never help each other do.
Yeah.
People hate helping people move. It's really come to this point where I think that's why I think for me it was very tough to live in the US with just individualism is very strong and it comes at huge costs to like when you're sick, no one really helps you. But here, like they'll bring food to each other. And like that's something that is, I mean, that is just such like it really comes down to even so like the communal way of growing is it's very strong. And that's why these things, I mean, because sometimes I'm like, well, how does food function? Like, how's this economy even there? Because everyone doesn't want to do it.
If you think about it, if you really look at it, it's all just very fragile. It's all held together barely. And, it's a very fragile system.
It's definitely because of their community. Like, they have support for each other. They're there for each other in times when tough or not.
Okay. I mean, like the larger system. But yeah, he's right that the community here is very strong.
Yeah, I mean,
there's definitely, I've seen books and research written about connecting rice growing to Asian community and collective values, because you can't grow rice without community. And so there's that connection of Asia as a region, which is largely rice, consuming, rice growing, became the culture that we are because of the kinds of processes that rice needed and the reliance on community. And
That's
that
very intensive.
individualism wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
And so this interesting relationship of rice.
Yeah, that's why it is.
Yeah.
It is definitely like the thing that glues all food production together. It's just the communities that are formed in places where food is grown are just so tight. And that's why like it's important to bring the youth back and kind of not modernize it overly. And the sense of community gets lost. And then there's actually nothing stopping it from like any problems in the future.
I'm reminded of this. Let's go into some philosophy. I'm reminded of this story actually that I read. It's by a Chinese philosopher, Zhuangzi, and it was in connection to this question of technology. And the story was actually about a farmer. And it goes something like a person walked up to a farmer and you could see the farmer like toiling on the soil, like, it's a sunny day, trying to water the fields. And this person came up to the farmer and said like, hey, you don't need to do this anymore. Have you heard of this technology that allows you to water the entire field just from standing in one place? And then the farmer looked at this person, smiled and said, you think I haven't heard of this? Like, I know about it, but I think that I will develop a mechanical heart if I do it. And the joy of life is from feeling the soil on my feet, listening to the birds, understanding, knowing what is growing around me. And so I will lose that in employing this technology. And that was just a nice story that I think reminded me as well of sometimes when we think of automation, we think about these robots in the fields, there's this story that's being sold to us that like we need to automate all these things that we don't actually like to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then we can do what? I'm not sure what exactly that is. Somehow there's a vision we're going to be these like glorious painters and artists.
Yeah, which is
Which is
I mean, how can you even do that when you're so disconnected from nature and like the actual reality of
So,
life,
like,
right?
Well,
Yeah.
I think when you're like a software engineer or like a tech person, you want to boil down everything to systems and simplicity. It is the world they live in. They want to make is extremely simple because everything is controllable and there's less error rates, which is fair. But then you also do take out the most joyous moments of your life. The complexity and the difficulty is why this is worth doing.
it's like suppressing like the
Yeah.
life, which is like in all its plurality.
Into like, oh, why are you struggling with this hardship?
And
You
just
can
green
be
nutrients.
sitting on your couch and doing nothing. It's simple. That's when I think, to the point of the farmer in the story, you take the soul and the humanness out of everything. And what's the point of even being alive?
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. There's a lot of.
But I think this kind of ties back to the commoditizing food. You don't see it as life. You just see it as pure, like, just I don't know how to food is to most people just a commodity. It's not like actual life. And I think this farmer in the story knows that you can't separate him from the life that he's growing. And
No, but even now, the best farmers are they're not the ones with the most tools. Just the people with the most intuition and wisdom. Like if you walk around, there's farmers with hundreds of mechanized tools. And then there's one farmer with a hose. And like that hose farmer is doing much better because overwatering is an issue and underwatering is an issue. But the one with the hose knows that. So the sad thing is, even with all the technology, still the best farmers are the people who are the most perceptive.
yeah.
It's great that you're saying that. Having, sit and done the research and building these products.
Yeah, I mean, our products are useless to the best farmers. Like, they obviously know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing we can do for people who look with actual perception. Like, they know their soil. Like, there's no products in the market that will help them.
Which also then, ties back to a book that I know we've talked about, Braiding Sweetgrass.
I'm reading that. Yeah, I have it in my bag.
Yeah, and how there's this alive relationship.
Yeah.
And plants will grow in relation to us. It's not like you and me and I and somebody else. Like our energy and that what we bring, each has its own relationship.
Yeah. And I think reading that book makes me really sad in a way. Almost like I want to live in that system where we can openly share food and understand that it's life. But instead we don't, and we exist in sort of now this very systematic world.
People have actually shown that the weeds that grow around your house are grown for you. And like it knows, it gets into this like strange metaphysical things, but there's been actual gardeners who have homes and have looked at the weeds around them, and they are the nutrient deficiencies that they had as people. And like they've studied that over many, many master gardeners. And that is like, it gets into this level where like maybe we don't really understand much. Because if the land is actually responding to you, then it begs the question, like, how does it know? Like there's maybe this intelligence we don't really know about. That's why like it's crazy. But there's some things which we'll never really know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I guess it brings us back to actually practically thinking about what we can do. Right? Like we can't change everything to be the way that we want it to be, but maybe we can make small changes in our life that have impact, at least to ourselves and the people around us, in a small but meaningful way.
Yeah, I think that's basically it.
Yeah.
Small important steps.
Paint a picture of the Living Roots future of like how would you imagine 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in which like this regenerative agriculture space has grown to 2%, as you said, maybe even higher. What would Thailand look like? What would the world look like? What would it mean for consumers like me?
Well, yeah, I think it would mean many things for many people, but most importantly, farmers will be excited to farm.
The joy.
The joy. So that we don't have to mechanize everything because it's just such a burden. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Then we get more people coming back and seeing that this is a good way of life that can support their livelihood. I think that's one really big thing. The other is to hopefully see less dependency on synthetic fertilizer and more people have more options to choose not to use it. And that generally food overall is also much healthier.
Yeah, but I think I would go even bolder. I'd say
Okay.
like,
Yeah, go bold.
I mean, I think for me, let's say by 2040, we should see the whole world be regenerative.
Okay.
Like, I think that is a realistic scenario where like maybe by 2040, 2045, one in for farms regeneratively. I think that would be an extremely good goal. Yeah, but I think more people are, like, you obviously don't want to be the only business, but ideally we can spark interest of other businesses in other countries, and people kind of develop this ecosystem, and it will take thousands of businesses to kind of change. But like for me, like seeds are still the most important part of a farmer's journey, more than soil. It's like really the most important thing we have to change, but it's the most difficult one because, like these big businesses like Syngenta, they've kind of created these seeds that are chemically dependent. And now to re-change the system, you have to kind of create new seeds that grow better with natural systems. And so for us, like the next 5-10 years, really building better fertilizer, better inputs for farmers to improve soil. And then like the next journey will be for more better seeds that are microbially active, that, without fertilizer can bring health back. Because I was reading about this baby food company in the US started by this, I think, like North American, what's it called? Anyways, these like tribal people who live in like indigenous people who live in the New Mexico desert. And like they don't use any fertilizer. They just have these seeds that they plant, and like it grows the most nutritious baby food. And like that is the ideal future. We just don't know how to get there yet. But yeah, I think that will be kind of like we're there. I think that the future looks good. I'm quite excited.
What about the new metric system or a new criteria for assessing food? Like you talked about the problematic system that farmers are judged, their produce is judged by. Do you see maybe a need for new grading systems?
I think that can only ultimately be decided by the consumer, their knowledge, awareness, and purchasing power. It's sort of like if the apple that I'm getting is a lot smaller, but I understand that this is much more nutritiously dense and this is the choice that I want to make for my health and the health of the planet. That choice is ultimately the most powerful. And I think there's no other way, really. If consumers are choosing to support businesses that support healthy farms, and that is ultimately the most powerful change we can make.
What's a couple practical things that someone listening now can do to make that choice? Maybe in Thailand or maybe globally if there's something more general.
I think
It's a big list.
it's a long list. I think an important shift that people can do and make is realize that the food that they're eating is life. I think a lot of people don't make that connection. They're just eating to basically eat and not be hungry. But if you slowly start to connect with the food that you're eating as the thing that's literally giving you life, and if the change comes from there, then you start to see why it makes sense to grow healthier food and to support farmers and regenerate soil. I think that's one kind of simple fundamental shift.
I'd add one. I think people should grow some of their own food.
Also that. Just to see how, like, your relationship to it and also how difficult it is.
I think life changes when you see a living thing grow every day. Like, it's just, like, your problems are kind of stupid. Because, like, like a tree will be, like, outlive you. Not that much really matters, but I think nutrition decreases every day. Food is stored. So, like, if you have really just good nutrients in your garden, even if you have a small pot, and like you can put it in your smoothie, I think that is such a big difference in your life that you'll find. But it's just like really easy, practical things where like maybe spend an extra hour doing fun things like gardening than do all the other things.
Yeah, growing your own food, being less fixated on buying the cheapest food possible.
Oh yeah.
Because people love coming to Thailand because the food is really cheap, right? But when people say, oh my God, I love cheap food, they're not realizing the negative and harmful impact that statement is perpetuating. It's like, I love the cheapest food possible. Imagine how little farmers are making. Like cheap food is not a win. It comes at a huge cost to the environment. And we're not, in your own health, we're not saying food should be like extremely lavish and very expensive. But this whole conversation on like, food is really cheap and it's amazing comes at a huge cost.
Well, someone is in debt. The earth is in debt,
Yeah.
or the farmer
Yeah.
is in debt, or
Yeah.
you're in debt. Like no one should be in debt for doing fundamental activities.
Yeah, and I think realizing that it's also being aware of that type of conversation and is really powerful. So I think it allows people to start making better choices about what they eat. Like definitely supporting farms, local farms, or businesses that care about how food is grown is also really powerful as well.
And it's just something to be more conscious of, because there will be like, I don't know, 2 billion, 3 billion more of us in the next 20 years. So I think if everyone is slightly more conscious, because there'll be a lot more of us,
Yeah.
and you don't have that much more land to farm. You have
Yeah.
to basically either improve farming or just be a little more conscious.
I think the only question that I still wanted to ask was if there's any resources, any books, anything that you would recommend people to check out, both about what you're doing, where they can follow you, where they can learn more about Living Roots, support your business, but also, as you said, to make more shifts in their lives, to understand these problems better.
Yeah. What can people do practically?
Practically,
Yeah.
I
Practically.
mean, from our side,
we were not practical. We were like very impractical.
yeah, don't start a farm.
Don't
unless-
do what we did. Did it
Actually-
all.
No, I think for Mars, like we have a home gardening brand called Panya Seeds. That's probably the best for people who at home. Like just start to grow a little bit of your own food. I think it'll make you understand why the system is complicated.
Yeah,
And
and failure is okay.
Yeah.
Just teach you how complicated it is to actually grow food. I
Yeah.
think even bringing that personal experience into your life will make people a lot more appreciative of the food that they eat and the farmers who are growing their food.
and then what resources wise, there's quite a lot of really good books. I think like Will Harris has some good books in farming, Nicole Masters. There's so many like of the greats who have kind of boiled down this information for people. I think Nicole Masters is like For the Love of Soil, which is a great book because I think it introduces you to the consequences of all of these kinds of negative
Okay.
practices.
Yeah, that's a really, really good
And then
one.
the
For
sweet-
just general people who are not into farming, they can still learn a lot.
The book, the
Braiding sweetgrass.
Yeah.
I think that's more about like the spiritual and like
Yeah.
indigenous wisdom that plants have. But I think that's also really good because we've overly simplified food in our life now. But
yeah,
it's reading someone else's perspective who has such a deep connection to the food that they eat
yeah.
is also brings this new dynamic into your life.
I think lastly, like I think just expose yourself to what it means to currently grow food, because I think a lot of people have a very large idealism of farming. Just be like someone who came from not knowing to now. We ask a lot of farmers. You ask them to year on year stress about money while never going on vacation, never being able to go anything, never being able to afford anything, and people complain about wanting cheaper food. That's an extremely unfair system.
Pesticides. Why are you putting so much pesticides?
Yeah, like
in
stop
my
crop
food?
burning. We don't have to get into crop burning, but
You get into
Oh,
crop
no.
burning. Yeah. But
This
I mean,
very-
we can get into it. We have time. It's okay.
We can.
there's very complicated. Just know that there's very complicated things when you work with the environment and nature, and they're not complicated when you don't do this day to day. But this is a very difficult business, not fun for us, but general farmers, like because they have very limited means. So just watch videos of why it's difficult, and just be like, everything I eat, I'm not gonna throw it away, or like I'll compost it properly, or like someone physically handled the food I'm eating today. Like someone put their life energy into growing what I'm consuming. I think that is enough. I think once you have that appreciation, it's easy to kind of fix the system.
It will. We're changing it moment by moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to do the crop burning. I knew it. There'd be so
Let's do it.
so many things that
No, we
yeah,
could do
so
it
many
now.
things that we could get into. But yeah, I mean, I'll just preface it with some context for listeners as well who are not in Thailand to know that, from about February to April, or really sometimes actually these days it's even earlier, starting January, even December until May, the PM 2.5 levels in northern Thailand, especially Chiang Mai, go really high, over 200-300. Haze is very visible. It's now so well known. It's like makes the news every year. Southeast Asia is, in this haze. So much of it is blamed on farmers, which you've just shared so much about the farmer situation. Knowing what you've now known, if you were to share like some high level key points for people to know about understanding the root of this and how you're trying to make shifts and where the change needs to happen.
Okay. Yeah. I think in a maybe a controversial statement that I'm going to make
I like
is actually this burning problem is the only way most people will actually feel the pain of the broken food system, right? It's the only actual tangible way that many of us are not connecting at how broken our food system is. It's like for these few months, we are breathing really bad. The general emotions is frustration, anger. Why can't farmers stop burning? But then I think in a way, it can help us move towards a better future because people don't realize that this is an issue because the whole system is so broken. And it's not enough just to be like farmers stop burning, because the major issue is that there's a lot of pressure on farmers to turn their crops really fast because they have to make money. Food is bought from them for really cheap and their crops don't degrade, or at least there's not enough time between seasons for them to wait for their crop residue to degrade before they prepare the land for the next season. So then there's all these limitations that farmers are facing.
Yeah, but I think it's actually like taking a step back. I think most people are like, okay, why do farmers burn? Like, what are the actual reasons? I think that's complicated because people are, like at home must be thinking like, this seems like a really stupid practice. It's like, why would you harm your own health? But so when you plant rice and harvest rice, there's straw left, and you have to do something with that straw. And so you only have about 15 to 20 days before you have to replant the rice because you have to transition. Most farmers have 2 seasons that they're growing with, and so you end with the dry season and then you start your rainy season rice. And so you have, let's say, 15 to 20 days. And in that time, you can imagine 1 acre of rice straw, let's say, is like 3 tons of material. Like lifting 3 tons out of a muddy hole is not that easy. You will spend weeks of your own time doing that. And then what to do with 3 tons of straw, like on your backyard, like that's practically nothing to do. The second, you have to like digest it in some way into the soil. But your soil is so degraded. Like you have over time been in the system where you're continuously killing your soil. So there's no microbes left to digest the straw, right? There's no actual use of it.
Yeah, I think a good kind of picture to paint is that in healthy soil, when you have crop residue or crop biomass, within a few weeks, it will degrade on its own into food for the soil. But in these kind of degraded systems, you could leave something for years and it will still be there. No degradation, no movement, no life whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that is the case with
A lot of farmers.
most farmers in Southeast Asia and Thailand. It's just if they leave it there, it's too expensive to transport. It won't ever go anywhere and you can't plant your next crop.
And so you can't leave it there because the tractor has to come in and prepare your soil. And in that tractor's preparation has to till the soil. And when you leave straw on the land, it will get stuck to the tractor. And so the tractor driver is like, I don't want to do this.
I'm not coming. You can't. Yeah.
So then what is the option that the farmer has? There's now companies that come in with a bale. They feed it to cows. But like there's not too much cow and feed demand for farmers. And so the only practical fast thing to do within 15 days at the moment is burn it. Because like if you miss your next season, that's no more money for you.
Yeah.
So there's no actual alternatives until recently.
Yeah. There's also like important notes that time constraints are really important when a farmer is trying to plant their next season. Ideally, they have months to rest, to like just leave the land and move on to, but that's not the practical. They have maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks to really like prepare their land for the next crop. So burning is kind of like,
makes sense.
It would make sense given the situation, given the current system that we all live in. It costs nothing.
It does cost societal cost, but to the individual farmer, it's like maybe 5 baht. Versus bringing in a machine to take it out would be 200-300 baht.
Yeah.
And that might be their entire profit margin from making the rice.
Yeah. So I guess come back to soil is like soil degradation, like what we have. So I mean, it's a good reminder for people. Not in a way where we kind of need everybody's understanding to come out of this issue that we have, but it's also the only real reminder that I think people can physically experience at how broken the system is. It's not as simple as people think. It's definitely not as simple as like, just stop burning. Why is my air so bad to breathe? And no, but we also have, I think, quite an innovative solution at Living Roots to tackle this problem within the time span that it needs to be tackled in, which is a very interesting product, which we call Activate. and it uses a lot of different types of microbes with a blend of foods for these microbes and also certain specific nutrients that when you spray onto crops helps to degrade the materials that would, so like these microbes would ideally naturally be in soil, but because they're not, you can spray it onto the crops and help speed up the process of degrading the crops. Within, I think, about 3 weeks, it's like 70 or 80% degraded, which is enough to prepare land for the next season.
Yeah. No, there are very practical ways. There's many types of people working on like reducing burning, but I think it's good to know that the central challenge is it's a very fast turnover rate. And currently the only solutions are like the easiest solution is matches. The other ones either acquire new machinery to be made where it collects corn stalk, and then there's biochar, which is its own product on its own. But what we want is we want to return the rice straw or the corn stalk back to the soil. The only way to do that is leave it onto the field, spray something that will digest it, and farmers actually make money because they save fertilizer. Corn becomes fertilizer for their next season. And so we're excited to scale it, but we live in Chiang Mai, so our real goal with this is to be able to have clean air all around the year.
Yeah, and I think some people are like, why don't farmers just stop growing corn? As like the simplest solution.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that so many times. And I'm like, that's a really foolish thing to say. Because like if there's no market, farmers are not gonna...
Where are they gonna sell watermelon?
What else are they gonna grow that they can't sell, right? They're gonna do what there is a market for, and currently there's only large markets for corn.
And there's a lack of awareness of what corn goes into and what we're consuming.
Yeah, like feed.
Well, we want really cheap meat. You're going to get fields of corn. There's nothing really else.
I think the full circle moment is people want cheap food, cheap meat. So farmers grow cheap corn and burn it. So it's like this system that you're stuck in, and then for a few months you can't breathe.
Yeah.
So it's kind of scary, but like also makes sense in a way.
Yeah.
You can have really cheap food grown at scale and have no actual cost.
No cost.
It's a reminder of that interconnectedness again. I had a conversation on a previous episode with Jordan Shannon, and the topic was planetary health. And that framing of seeing the health of our planet and our health as one. And I cannot be healthy unless my soil is healthy. And here we have the most practical example of that visibly happening.
Yeah, for sure.
But the conversation seems to misunderstand this root.
No, there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of frustration. But I think
it's very interconnected.
It's a good reminder when this problem arises where we live, just to be like, wow, this air pollution issue is because the food system is fundamentally broken and soil is really degraded. I don't think many people make that connection.
This unique crop burning example isn't the first time in history. Like the crop bowl, the crop dust also happened in the US.
The Dust Bowl,
The Dust Bowl, where we were like basically killing soil so much, it was flying in the air for tens of years.
Yeah.
Tons of people died because of the health issues. So we've repeatedly done this in human history where we have been like, we really want something, and then the goal is wrong. And then we're like, why is society not working fine? I'm like, the goal function we've created is extremely
It's oftentimes it's come across as like, actually our systems are functioning perfectly. They're functioning as they were designed to. That's
they were designed.
The problem is that it's not that our system isn't working properly. It's like it is working too well, and that's like coming to awareness that we are creating the world that we designed.
And I would say at the moment there's no like global good systems anyone has created anywhere in the world that are functioning correctly. They're all not.
And burning is also misunderstood because I was spending time with some of the Karen Pakanyo communities here as well, and they shared about their practices with burning for rotational farming for decades. For hundreds of years they've helped be ecosystem stewards, but a misunderstanding of just painting burning as just bad then prevented them from also being the stewards that they are.
That's true.
Yeah, but I think it's important to note the scale of when it's done in a tribal or community setting versus in a commercial setting, where you're growing maybe like 100, 300, 500 acres of corn, and you need to burn it to get rid of the residue, which is the issue where we see, because small scale burning for the intention of
land restoration
or ecosystem will not cause the problem that we're seeing now.
No, definitely not. Not at the same time either. Right? Land stewards know that, these are specific days where this will cause this, but now we're like routinely doing it in March and April, and you're like, that's not really the way to go.
So hopefully we can scale our Activate product pretty fast. I think it's a good solution for some farmers, not all farmers, but farmers whose hands are like quite tied into having to burn, which there are a lot. There are a lot, especially for rice farmers in Thailand. But I think we'll need to work with a lot of governments, a lot of sort of bigger businesses that can really get out this solution faster.
I, like many people in Chiang Mai, are rooting for you. We're rooting for Living Roots. And I think we could go on. Maybe we'll do another more dedicated part 2 on some of these themes. Avika Abhi, thank you so much for sharing. It was. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to enjoy the edit. Yeah, thank you for hosting. Listeners, this has been the Light Forest podcast. I think this conversation has helped us get to the root in many ways of why our food systems, why our agriculture, why our climate as well is failing us. Perhaps it's because we started failing our climate and ecosystem around us. But the regeneration is happening. It's happening. It's alive. We will continue this in the next episode. And thank you for joining. Please hit subscribe. Please share this with friends and people. Let's get the message out there so people can start to live in more healthy ways, start to eat more nutritious food, make better decisions in our lives, and live more light forest worlds.